Good morning, welcome to Fairy and Spoil. Today I want to talk to you about heartburn in dogs or acid reflux. So two of the dogs that I have at the moment have had it in their life. So Harry here, he had it once. Well, went on for a few days. Albert had it, lasted a few days, and then Hump's down here, he's never had it. And Albert was the first dog. So Albert's if you don't know my channel, Albert's my little white dog. He always looks homeless. Always. He has the most grooming, but he always looks like he lives in the bins. And then we've got my pickle boy here, Harry. So Albert had it, oh goodness, he's 10 now. So he was probably maybe about 5 when he had it. And I took him to the vets because I didn't know what was happening. And they said that it was heartburn. And the symptoms that he had were he was sicking up bile, and it was happening in the afternoons, and it happened every afternoon for about 3 or 4 days. Every afternoon he would be sicking up bile, and I took him to the vets because I didn't know what it was, and they said it was heartburn. Now, although they said it was heartburn, they didn't really tell me how to stop it. So I went and did what I always do, and I went and researched it. And I found out that one of the reasons that dogs can get heartburn is if they have a food that is too high in either protein or fat. And at the time, I was using little bits of cheese to do training with him. I now don't do that. I wouldn't use cheese. Really, really, really high reward if if there was an occasion when you needed them impeccable. Maybe a little bit of cheese, but I'd stay away from it really. The fat content of it is too high. But anyway, so at the time I was training him with little bits of cheese. And I was training him at 2 o'clock. And then this sicky thing happened about 3 or 4 o'clock. And so I knew that was the connection. And so I so I stopped feeding him with the cheese, training him with the cheese. And it completely stopped, like a switch had gone, and it never happened again. And I've never used cheese with him going forward. So you're going to have to excuse my cough. We've all had this cold. The cold is long gone, and we're sort of weeks afterwards, and everybody is still coughing with it. It's just life, isn't it? And so I never gave him the cheese again, and the heartburn just stopped. So it's any food. I mean, you shouldn't feed a dog any food that is really high in fat anyway. So, like, never feed them pork or anything that's high in fat. A little bit of cheese. I mean, by themselves, they're not a massive problem. Before I had these three, I had a German Shepherd, and he was, I trained him to work with disabled people, and I trained him to do all sorts of things. I was forever at some sort of training ground with him. And I used to use cheese a lot with him, and there was never any problems. But for little Albert there, sweet little Albert, who looks homeless, it was a problem for his system, and so I just stopped that. The other thing you have to watch is, when I was researching it, it said that if a food is high in protein, that can sometimes cause heartburn. Now, as it happens, that wasn't the problem with Albert. It was the cheese that was causing it. Foods high in protein are a bit of a problem because I'm training to be a dog nutritionist. I've been researching nutrition for years with dogs, and dogs need a high protein diet. So that's a little bit of a problem because you don't really want to take your dog off the high protein, because that is the meat and the fish, and dogs need a high protein diet. So if you read that that to take them off the high protein diet, I would really recommend that you don't do that, because dogs do need a high protein diet. If you don't feed dogs a high protein diet, you can end up with a whole load of other problems to deal with their bones and all sorts of different organs. And so if you ever look it up yourself and you read take dogs off a high protein diet, really try not to do that, because that might not be the problem. Try and find out. And obviously cheese is high in protein, and that was why it was the problem. So the combination of the high fat and the high cheese, the high protein in the cheese was the problem. And so I just stopped giving them cheese. High fat foods, I think, are more of the problem, because I know with me myself, if I eat too much avocado, I get really bad heartburn. And so I'm aware of that, and so I limit how much avocado I have every day. So, and I know dogs and humans are very different in the digestive systems, but it is the high fat in the cheese that caused the heartburn with Albert. Now, the second scenario he had was with Harry, and he had a completely different reason to have heartburn. The symptoms were exactly the same, sicking up bile. And what was happening was, it was happening about 4 o'clock in the morning. It was going to the end of our bed and sick and being sick in the corner of the bed. And it happened day after day. So it happened about 3 times. And I thought, that's heartburn. I knew it was heartburn. And I couldn't work out why he was doing it, because I thought it wouldn't be the same reason as Albert, because it's happening at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I don't use cheese anymore to train my dogs, or anything that's high in fat. So, as I always do, I researched it and I found out. So this happened about, maybe, he's 7 now, so probably happened about 4 years, 4 years ago. And what I found out was that sometimes the long gap of them not eating can cause them to have acid reflux. And they have their last meal at 4 o'clock, and they do have a little treat in the evening, but it's just a little thing. And it said that and when I was researching it, it said that if your dog has acid reflux, if you give them it said a small meal before they go to bed. And I was really reluctant to do that, because then you're going to have issues with them needing to go to the toilet in the night. And also, if I gave him a small meal, I've got 3 dogs, everybody has to have the same. And it just wasn't a road I wanted to go down. I didn't feel that that was really the best solution. But going on the principle that it was because he had gone too long with anything to eat, I made these treats and I gave him one of them an hour before he went to bed, and it's completely stopped it. So let me take you into my kitchen and I'll show you the treats I'm talking about. So these are the treats that I'm talking about. Now, I will actually do a video showing you exactly how I make them, but they're just so simple. It's just turkey mince or lamb mince, just rolled into little sausages and cooked in the oven. I will do a video about it, but it is just that, just turkey or just lamb. But what I wanted to show you was, more importantly, was the size of it. So if you see, that is one there. So just above my finger, that is one like little sausagey thing, just that one there. And just giving him that was enough to stop him from getting heartburn. Did you hear me moving the bag? He recognised the sound of that bag. He's got his blanket on him because it's gone really, really cold here in the UK. Do you want me to take it off you? Where you go? You're going to go on your bed with it? Do you want me to take it off you? Let's take it off you. It's gone really, really cold here, and he has always felt the cold. He always has really felt the cold. Do you want to be covered back up? All right. Do you want your blanket cover you back up? Yeah, he's always really, really felt the cold, and I just have to say, if I see that he's really curled up in a tiny little ball, then I know that he's cold. And so I just say to him, oh, do you want your blanket? And he'll run into the sitting room or wherever and get cosy. And he knows, and he waits, and he knows that I'm going to get his blanket for him and that I'll cover him up. And the reason I like blankets is because he can just walk and get out of it. So if you put coats on them or jumpers, you don't know how hot they are. And dogs overheat really easily, and it's really dangerous. So if you just cover them up in a blanket, then they can walk away from it if they're too hot. But he likes his blanket, and I tuck him all in. Tuck him all in, and he makes his little noises. There we go. You all tucked in? Yeah, you are. So that's that then. So that's about heartburn. So it's a horrible condition for them if they get it. But it's what you're looking for is it's bile. So it's sort of a yellowy coloured liquid. Sometimes it's really quite thin. Other times it's a bit thicker. And in my experience, they just kind of did it and then it was over and done with. There was no fuss. Just sort of happen maybe once or twice at each episode. Now, there are other symptoms that can happen, but I think the fact that I've had 2 of my dogs have it and symptoms were the same, I would say they were probably the key ones to look out for. But it's not a nice condition, and yeah, something to you know, if you can stop it, then you definitely should, because it would be painful for dogs. Think how painful it is for us. So it is painful for dogs. So if you can stop it, so that's the two things: feeding them something that's too high in fat, or there being too much of a long gap between their last. When I say last meal, you saw from the treat there, it's not a meal, but it's just a bigger treat, and that is just enough to stop him from having the heartburn. And he's never had it again ever since I started putting that in, giving it to him about an hour before he went to bed. He's never had heartburn since. He's completely stopped it. So that's it. So as always, you know where I am, social medias and all that. And if you've got any questions at all, don't hesitate to put them in comments. So thanks very much for watching. He's under here in his blanket. You're all cosy under there. Yeah. Right, see you in the next video. Bye bye.